Good evening. I like that. I like that. Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Folks Talking Sports, sponsored by the Saxenian family, Steve Saxenian to be specific. I'm Chris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me right now, James Mueller of the Daily Cougar, sports editor with the Cougar, and Willie Gibson from WTG Sports, Will Knows Podcast, all those good things. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good.
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. And hopefully in about 30 minutes, Tamer Knight will be joining us as well to add to the trio, make it a foursome this evening. But let's get right into it. I'm going to throw a curveball because just in case Rocket fans tune in, we're not going to talk too much Rockets. Let's talk Rockets on Sunday, December 12th. We'll see if the Rockets at that point in time will have a 8-game winning streak, a 9-game winning streak, or a 1-game losing streak, or a 2-game losing streak because they play the Bucks on Friday and they're at Memphis on Saturday. But my curveball is, gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the WNBA real quick. Just real quick. The WNBA announced that the regular season for 2022 tips off on May 6th. And I'm going to pull up something a little different, just to pull up a little slide that I'm adding to the features of Folks Talking Sports of FTS. We can pull it up, put it on the screen for everybody to see. This is the weekend games, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. Some good matchups for those who are WNBA fans. You can check that out. You got 4 games on Friday, May 6th, 2 on Saturday, May 7th, 3 on Sunday, May 8th. Tipping off with Indiana, Washington, and I don't really care about that. But that next one, Los Angeles Sparks versus the Chicago Sky, the reigning champ, Chicago Sky. Candace Parker, a former WNBA MVP, going against her old team, the LA Sparks, in one of the local products. Janae Ogumake, hopefully Janae is healthy and was playing that game. Then you got Las Vegas Aces versus Phoenix. And I'm kind of curious to see if Diana Taurasi will play one more season. Her body kind of broke down on it toward the end of this past season. Mercury got a new coach. They announced they're going to be parted ways with Sandy Bondello. So we'll see if a new coach, heck, one of Taurasi will become coach of Mercury for her final season. Who knows? And then you got the Minnesota Lynx versus Seattle Storm. That rounds out the games on Friday, May 6th, and Saturday. The Connecticut Sun at the Liberty of New York. Atlanta Dream versus Dallas Wings. Atlanta Dream is in state of flux. We'll see how they do. Sunday, May 8th, LA Sparks against the probably will be 0-1 Indiana Fever, struggling, as they have for almost 3-4 years now. Seattle Storm at the Aces. And closing out, the Washington Mystics versus the Minnesota Lynx. That is the open weekend of the WNBA season. The league announced that this year's season will be 36 games, fellas. They've expanded the season from 32 to 34, 36 now. They got to run this by you guys. I want to run this by you guys. This is something with the second year of this in the WNBA, but they have what they call a Commissioner's Cup. It's an in-season tournament pitting conference rivals against each other during the first half of the regular season. There'll be 10 designated quote-unquote cup games per WNBA team, and it'll be the first home game and first road game each team plays against its 5 conference rivals. The team from each conference with the top record in those cup games will compete for a lucrative prize pool in the Commissioner's Cup championship game on July 26th. And I want to say the prize money per player was at least, for the winning team, 40 grand, maybe 50 grand, I want to say. Something like that. So Commissioner's Cup. And it's an idea that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has kicked around for 2 or 3 seasons now. And it's some things like this in the WNBA. The WNBA is kind of like a guinea pig to see how it works in their league and then to see if it's successful, try to get it in the NBA. So just your thoughts on the idea of something similar in the NBA, a Commissioner's Cup, where you have something like this, an in-season tournament. James?
I mean, I think the benefit would be you get more competition or competitiveness during the regular season, because in the NBA you see a lot of stars resting, load management stuff. So if there's money at stake, you might get some more of these guys playing a few more regular season games, which obviously is good for viewership and things. I think it could be interesting. I don't know exactly if I think it's the best idea, but I think it's interesting to see how it goes in the WNBA, and then maybe it is something they can implement.
Well, what do you think about an in-season cup in the WNBA, in the NBA? Excuse me.
I don't know. I mean, these guys are playing for June. These guys are playing for rings, and it's great to say we won the Commissioner's Cup, but I don't know the buy-in. I don't know that many, if any, teams would have a buy-in to do it. I mean, I mean, I'm sure the money will be much more than 40, 50 grand. I mean, I've heard.
Okay, what have you heard? What number have you heard talked about per play?
I've heard upwards of $1 million.
Yeah.
For this Commissioner's Cup, but I mean, $1 million. LeBron's making 38 this year. I don't. I mean, and LeBron right now is the straw that stirs the drink in the NBA. He calls Adam Silver all the time. So if LeBron says, I don't think it's a good deal, then it's going to be squashed. But I just don't know. I don't know. That's just personally. I don't know that it will fly.
I'm kind of in between, James. I think at some point it's going to happen. The money, the prize pool may have to increase a lot to 3, 4, 5 million per player, whatever, per winning team and players on the team. But Adam Silver is trying to maintain and build interest during the regular season. And he thinks this is an idea, it's successful in soccer, in world football. You have in-season tournaments in Premier League and cups over there in Europe. And so he's trying to build up interest. I'm not sure how many NBA players will be good with it, because one, are you going to do similar to what the WNBA is doing? And it's not really adding too many games to the regular season. You're just designating games against other conference as games toward the cup, and then you just play one extra game. Would that be what they're talking about doing, rather than doing like a week out of it, something like that, like around All-Star break or something along those lines, because that won't fly at all. I don't see NBA owners agreeing to less home games, to fit in games for the cup. I don't think they're going to do that. So kind of curious to see how it all plays. I think at some point it may not happen until James, how old are you?
I'm 20.
So yeah, it may not happen until James is 30 or 40, but I think it's going to happen at some point because it's just, if it's done correctly, it could be another revenue generator. And I mean, really, that's what the straw that stirs the drink, is to make more money, to generate revenue. But we'll see. I want to shift gears. Let's talk about it, James. We're in town now. We're in H-Town.
Can I say one thing?
Of course, Will. Yes,
Before
sir.
we move, my fault. Going back to the schedule, opening weekend. Who in the WNBA league office sent the Sparks to Chicago on ring night?
That's a great question. No, yeah, no question. It's messy. It's petty. Derek, I wonder if Candace Parker's, put in a word to the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, and said, hey, I want the Sparks to see me get this ring, So, hey, why not? The NBA is trying to build storylines. Why not? That'd be a storyline. Draw interest. And notice that schedule that I had up on the screen did not have TV networks yet, because those deals have not yet been finalized and announced yet. But that's probably coming in January, I would say, when they announce the networks and the games on the TV, with networks, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I would say, at minimum, that Sparks Chicago game would be on ESPN. So Friday, ESPN, I could see that happening. But we'll see. But yeah, well, hey, petty, messy, nothing wrong with that. It's all good here.
Yeah.
But okay, shift the gears. Let's be a little petty here. James, the Rockets have won 7 straight ball games. John Wall has not played in any of those 7. Jalen Green hasn't played in 4 of them. So clearly, James, the Rockets don't need Jalen Green or John Wall, right?
I mean, I wouldn't agree with that. I think, like I said before, obviously you want to develop the young guys. Jalen Green, you took him number 2 overall. He has a lot of potential. You're going to lose games. You want to get him in there. It's great that the Rockets are winning games, but you're not going to withhold Jalen Green out when he's healthy just because, we're on a winning streak. A similar situation with John Wall, I think, like I've said before on the show, I mean, if he really wants to play, he's got to accept the role that he's going to come off the bench to start. And then if he can, prove that he's NBA ready, still a valuable, guy who can be in that starting rotation, then maybe he gets into there, gets traded to a team in contention or something like that. But I mean, I still don't think the Rockets are going to make the playoffs. I mean, so it doesn't matter if they win, 10 games in a row but miss the playoffs. The end goal is going to be the same. The end of the season, nothing's going to change.
Well, what do you say? We talked about this earlier on KYK on the lunch break. But what do you say?
Yeah. They gotta shut it down. They gotta shut it down because, as you said, we talked about the discrepancy between the East and the West. 8-16 is what, 13?
Yeah,
in the
James,
West.
The Rockets, with their 8-16 record, they're 4 games out of 7th.
Yeah, yeah, I know that. I don't think it will last, but yeah, it is crazy that you're 8 games under 500, and you're so close to a playoff spot. Yeah.
But no, I think it's it's a nice story now. I think Coach Silas is I don't want to say he said this to his team or it was said to him like, you got to show some improvement, but it's helping him. I mean, because he had 15-game winning streaks and 15-game losing streaks rather, and back-to-back seasons last year and then this year out the box, basically. They start the season 15-game losing streak. So I'm sure questions were swirling around his head, and I like Steven Silas, so I'm glad that this at least gave him some somewhat solid footing. But the end game is still ping pong balls in the hopper, and whatever it takes to get to that. That's why I think John Wall may not play in 2021-22 for the Rockets.
I agree. I'm surprised Rocket fans haven't chimed in on these comments because I'm curious what they think. The Rockets should not, in my opinion, and it sounds like y'all agree, should not make the play-in. Should not reach 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th spot because they're not good enough yet. They need more talent. They have some nice young pieces, and they're finally starting to show some of that talent during this streak with help from vets like Eric Gordon, and you might as well say it because on this team, Christian Wood is a vet as well, 26 years old or so. The vets are playing well, but the Rockets need another top 3, top 4 pick to continue the process because to me, the goal should not be to be a 7th seed in the playoffs the next 3-4 years. The goal should be to get home court. That's top 4, and then get to win first round, do work in the semifinals, then get to the conference finals, and then ultimately get to the finals. So to do that, you need talent. Rockets don't have enough talent to do that right now. That's my take on that. Okay, James, audience, Will, I'm going to talk about petty. Will, I don't think this is petty what I'm about to do. Okay. I think this is being objective. Last week, James, I think the Memphis Tigers men's basketball team have lost 3 straight. I don't think they played since these comments that Penny Hardaway said to Seth Davis from The Athletic. But I'm going to put on the screen. And basically, if you haven't heard, seen, read, Penny called out the vets on his squad. And here's some of what Mr. Hardaway said. Make it bigger a little bit here. Hardaway said he intended to shake up the lineup in the days ahead, distributing most of the minutes to the players he believes will play the hardest and put the team first. Quote, I'm going to have to be a complete asshole from this point on and only play the players that care, he said. There's a group of people on this team that if I played them, I really feel in my heart we could be undefeated or only have one loss. We could argue that, debate that one way or the other. But anyway, the main reason we have these losses is the veterans don't want to take the young guys under their wings. They want it to be about them. So when adversity hits, they run. I guarantee you we'll start winning because you're going to see guys out there who care and will carry out the game plan. They might make mistakes, but there are not going to be any character issues. And I love this. Asked if he had enough asshole in him to switch things up so drastically, Hardaway laughed. Quote, I've got a lot of asshole in me. I'm from the hood. Will, I'm respectful because my grandmother raised me the right way. But if you're destroying the team from the inside and not caring, that'll make me snap. End quote. Thoughts on that? That's right there. I gotta contrast that with the Cougars in just a second. Go ahead.
Snap, Penny. Snap. Because he's right. Why? But my question is really, if you know you had guys that weren't carrying, you're the coach.
Right.
Why were you playing them? You just said there, I know I have guys on this team that if I played, we would have one loss or be undefeated because they care. But yet you didn't play them. So now you want to say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to play these guys. And those guys are probably like, Coach, I've been here the whole time. What? I don't know that part. I'm kind of like, bro, what is that? You're the coach.
James, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree with Will. That's the first thing that sort of popped into my mind. Like, you know, it took you this long to realize, because it's happened since he's been at Memphis. You know, he gets a top recruiting class. He has the talent he needs, but then there's internal issues within the program, and he never seems to have the answer. And it's like, if it takes you this long to realize that and you're finally admitting it, I mean, it's just a sign of just the disarray within the program. And yes, Memphis has a lot of talent. They have a lot of guys that, you know, are capable of making it a winning program. But just with the way it's being run right now, I see it myself like hard to, you know, buy into this Memphis team like a lot of people do, you know, year in and year out under Penny, just because of what they look like on paper.
And these struggles, I think, is an example of why the American Athletic Conference coaches picked Houston, men's basketball, of course, to win the conference preseason and Memphis second. Because Memphis, as James said, they have a lot of talent. They might have more talent than U of H. But of the two head coaches, who does more with less and who does less with more? Coach Sampson does more with less, and Penny so far has done less with more. So, which gets me back to a point of the polls. We saw it. Those preseason rankings had Memphis. Some of them had Memphis top 8, top 5, in between like 5 and 12. And U of H was 15 to 20. Okay, which team is winning, playing well, and which team is struggling? So preseason polls that we discussed here many times, just for discussion, doesn't mean anything. It's just for conversation. But here I'm going to play a clip from U of H guard Marcus Sasser talking about the vets that he learned from at U of H. And also now as a leader on the team, he's teaching one of the youngsters, Jamal Shed, what he was taught. Go figure. Here we go.
In the year, did you sort of take it upon yourself to become more of a leader, knowing, you know, Quentin and Dejan were not going to be here anymore, and How did you sort of approach that?
Yeah, Quentin and Dejan, they did a good job, you know, teaching me the ways of being a good leader. And coming in as my third year, you know, I just knew it was my time. You know, I was here freshman. I had Nate, Dejan, and Quentin. Then I was a sophomore. I had Dejan and Quentin again. And then, you know, it's my time next. So coming in this summer, you know, I just tried to do the things they taught me, which, you know, is play hard, every practice, compete, you know, lead by example. I feel like I'm doing a good job at that.
Do you think you've gotten better at it throughout the year?
Yeah, you know, at first I wasn't, you know, not vocal. You know, I just, like Jamal said, led by example. But, you know, as the year goes on, I'm getting more comfortable, you know, talking to my teammate, telling them what to do and not to do, and knowing how to talk to all of them. So, yeah.
There's time for one more. If you got Jay?
Yeah, Marcus, could you just describe Jamal's growth and what you've seen, you know?
Yeah, he's getting really good, you know, every day. I done went from guarding him to now we being on the same team, which is, you know, fun. I've been knew how good he was, you know, having to guard him every day. You know, I feel like he got me better, you know, so us sharpening each other's irons. I've been knew how good he was. Now we're on the floor together, you know. He's picking the defense apart. And then knowing I have another guard with me, you know, that's a great on-ball defender, you know, it's kind of easier knowing, like, I don't have to help as much when he's on the ball. He knows he don't have to help as much when I'm on the ball. So his growth has been amazing. He's helping the team a lot.
Amen. That's how it should be. And James Mueller with the question there, you heard his voice, his baritone / bass voice there. And the first two questions were from Chris Baldwin from Paper City Magazine, who I'm trying to get Chris on probably next week's show to join us and share his thoughts on U of H men's basketball. But yeah, that's what coaches want. The vets to teach the youngsters, the underclassmen, the culture of the program. And a key, lead by example, iron sharpening iron. Those are cliches, but that's what you want. That's what successful programs, that's how they stay successful. James, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Kelvin tells the media this all the time. He goes through a list of guys he loses each year and how everyone thinks there's going to be a major drop-off. I mean, just look from this year to last year. They lost 4 guys that played significant minutes. 2, one's on an NBA roster, the other's in the G League. Then you got some other guys playing overseas. And the years before that, you got some of your top players that are lost each year. And you think, you know, how are they going to rebound? But he always finds a way to, and it speaks to the buy-in of this program. And I would argue, like, Houston's never had, under Kelvin Sampson, a top 10 team in terms of talent. But they've been so successful because of just the legacy each player that passes through the program creates, and how they're intentional about bonding, building this family culture so that it's passed down and it's created this sustained excellence. And is why U of H has been one of the top teams in the country over the past 4 years or so since,
Agree. Well put, James. And we can go back to clips from previous games, post games. Tazi Moore, newcomer on this year's squad. Josh Carlton, big man Josh Carlton, both of them. The culture, the Houston culture, it's different. It's about accountability. I didn't play it, but after one of the recent, I think the blowout went over Bryant, Coach Sampson said to us post-game, he said, second half, first 3 minutes, his vets, Fabian White, Reggie Chaney did not play well, up to his standard. He sat him down. And I forgot how Coach really how he said it exactly, but he said, effort, you're going to play hard. It's not negotiable. I don't care what they think. If they're not playing hard, they're going to sit. So, okay, Penny Hardaway, which is really strange because it's not like Penny is new to basketball. He's played it forever. He's coasted. I don't know, grassroots is not the same thing, but he's had talent before. So you know the dynamic. So you're the coach. Be the coach. Go ahead, Will.
And not just Penny. I thought about it. His staff. He has Larry Brown. He has Rasheed Wallace. And everybody's just sitting back and just twiddling their thumbs watching? Like, what's the deal? What is the deal?
Yeah, agreed. It makes no sense. And we're not throwing shade on the vets like Lester Quinones and DeAndre Williams, the guys who were on that NIT team. Because some teams who win the NIT the previous season, postseason NIT, they have used that as a springboard to success the following season. These guys haven't. So it's not about you as individuals. Jalen Duren, top guy. Yes, Jalen and Imani Bates reclassified to play this season. They're NBA players, but they're not college players. They need y'all's guidance to help Memphis win. Because if the team doesn't have success in a college level, NBA teams notice that. Trust me.
Yes.
NBA teams notice that. They see it. Well, he put up great numbers. The team still lost. So is he a leader or he just a stat stuffer? He just out for himself getting stats. Teams see that. And let me be more specific. The winning teams see that. The losing teams, he just put up numbers. Yeah, but the team lost. Yeah, but whatever. He scored a lot of points though. That's So that's why winning teams continue winning, losing teams continue losing. Okay, we'll take a break for the fellas. They can get some water. I'm going to do a segment sponsored by Steve Saxenian and Saxenian family. We're going to talk about the Coogs Alabama game. And then after I'm done with that, Tamer should be joining us. And then all of us can talk about the matchup. Solo for me, guys. Do what you got to do. All right, this segment of Folks Talking Sports is brought to you by the Saxenian family and specifically Steve Saxenian. We thank him for his support, sponsoring the show, Folks Talking Sports, FTS. 9 p.m. 9 p.m. this Saturday night, December 11th, the 8-1 Houston Cougars men's basketball team will face the 7-1 Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa, Alabama on ESPN2. The Cougs enter Saturday's game following a 77-45 win over Alcorn State inside the Fertitta Center on Monday. It was Houston's fourth straight win by at least 29 points. Fans can watch Saturday's game against Bama on ESPN2 with Carl Ravitch and Jimmy Dykes calling the action. Alabama is 4-0 in home games inside Coleman Coliseum this season and is ranked currently 9th in the AP, Associated Press, and the coaches' polls. Last Saturday, Alabama surprised a lot of college basketball watchers, me included, when they really mashed and dominated Gonzaga in Seattle, Washington, in a 91-82 win. The game wasn't that close. The Zags were number 3 at that time. In that game against the Zags, Alabama junior guard Jaden Shackelford led all players with 28 points on 10 for 16, shooting from the floor, including 6 of 8 from three-point range. He also grabbed 9 rebounds. Freshman guard J.D. Davison came off the bench to pour in 20 points with 4 threes, while junior guard Javon Quinterly totaled 17 points with a game-high 6 assists in Alabama's win. This season, Shackelford leads Alabama with 19.3 points per game and is second on the team with 6.8 rebounds per game. Quinterly is second on the Tide with 14.9 points per game and nearly 4 assists per game, while Keon Ellis is third in scoring with 12.1 points per game, but he leads the team with in rebounding at 6.9 boards per contest. Davison leads the team with 4.6 assists per game. Alabama, and this is going to be one of the keys, Alabama attempts about 30 threes per game and makes slightly more than 10 threes per contest, shooting roughly 34.7% from three-point range per game. Houston opponents have shot 27.6% from 3 this season. Houston shooting 38.4% from 3 this season, making 9.2 threes per game. Alabama's opponents have shot 27.0% from 3 this season. Once again, It's a top 15 matchup. I think Alabama's 9, U of H is 14 in the polls. In the net rankings, U of H is 4 and Alabama's 11. 9 p.m. this Saturday, ESPN2, the 8-1 Houston Cougars on the road against the 7-1 Alabama Crimson Tide. This Houston Cougars segment was made possible by the Saxenian family. Back to my guys. What are your thoughts? Let me get this right. What are your thoughts on the matchup? Looking forward to it, James. Will, I got to take some no-dos for that late tip-off time at 9 o'clock. But Houston, Alabama, Coach Sampson said today he's looking forward to it because it's really their first true road test of the season. But James, what do you think?
Yeah, there's two things I'm looking for. First, like you just mentioned, it's the first true road test of the season for a lot of guys like Jamal Shed, Tremont Mark, guys like that. They played road games last year, but empty to little arenas. It's going to be loud. It's going to be packed in Tuscaloosa Saturday night. So I'm interested to see, just how they respond to that and just, a hostile environment. And then, like you said, the battle of the two backcourts. Kelvin Sampson talked about it earlier, how, Alabama's all the talent that you have there. You read their stats. They're 3 starting guards, and then Davison, who comes off the bench, all average upwards of 10 points a game. Davison's just right at like 9.8 or something, but they can all score the ball. And like you mentioned about the 3 ball, that's going to be key because Alabama, if they make their threes, they're tough to beat. But UH is really good at defending the 3. So that's going to be, there's a lot of intriguing little storylines in this. And I think it will be, a good game, and there will be a lot of takeaways, a lot we can learn about both teams from this game Saturday night.
Well, what are your thoughts on what I read and what James just said?
Yeah.
You got the full screen too, Will, so be ready. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. Full screen. I agree. I mean, I'm interested to see the chess match, the X's and O's between Kelvin Sampson and Nate Oates. Nate Oates, has come to Alabama in a relatively short period of time, and I won't say he's on par with the football program, but he's at least made that basketball program relevant. Case in point, beating Gonzaga on the road, not in Spokane, but in Seattle, not clearly in Coleman Coliseum. So I'll be interested to see that chess match between Kelvin Sampson and Nate Oates, rather. Alabama clearly is a 3-point shooting team, shooting about 33% from the 3 line, and Houston is hangs their hat on their perimeter defense. So, strength against strength, who wins out. So it'd be interesting to see. And also Alabama, that crowd, Coleman Coliseum, not a huge, terribly big place, but you could be dealing with a crowd coming off of watching their quarterback potentially win the Heisman Trophy earlier that evening. So a little bit of extra oomph in their support for their program Saturday night. So, it should be a good game, though. You talk about no-dos, Chris, at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern for me. So if you have no-dos, I'm definitely going to have a pot of coffee.
Yeah, see, James, you're 20 years old.
Right.
I'm almost 50. So I'll be 50 in March. So, yeah, no-dos, coffee, maybe some of Coach Holgerson drinks that he chugs down 6-7 times a day, something to keep me going. Because Rockets play Memphis at 7, so I got to get post game of that and then finish off watching the Coogs in Alabama. But, excuse me, going to touch on this. This is kind of surprising. The net rankings came out for the first time this season on the 6th, and U of H is 4th. But, can y'all read that right there, Will? You see it?
Now
U of H is 4th? Yeah.
Now I can.
And Alabama is 11th. U of H is 8-1. James, their 8 wins, 4 are against quad 3 opponents and 4 are against quad 4 opponents. So one of those, the game against Virginia's struggling. That was projected to be at minimum a quad 2, and quad 2 for home games purposes is roughly 51 to 75 net ranking. I think that's about right for home games. But Virginia's struggling, so that's an issue. Houston's one game so far against Quad 1. It's a loss that they had against Wisconsin. But 8 of their 9 games, 4 against Quad 3, 4 against Quad 4, and they're still ranked 4th. That's what surprises me, is that they're ranked 4th. So I think, despite what the net committee said when they first started it, the margin of victory is playing a big part in these calculations, because the Cougs have blasted their opponents. You know, the last 4 wins are almost at least 29 points per victory. But if you're blasting Bryant, Alcorn State, okay, you know, you're winning. But how should we take that? How impressive is that? So I'm looking forward to, and I'm not saying, because I think this Houston team is going to be very, very good come February and March. I'm just surprised they're ranked 4th in the net based on who they played so far. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. It definitely surprised me. Just like you said, there's no marquee win on that schedule. Like Virginia, who is supposed to be, the big time opponent, they're young, they're struggling. They've lost more games than most people expected them so far. But like you said, there's many things that go into the net. And so, winning by 67 over Bryant and 40 over Alcorn State or whatever, it's boosted the ratings. But one thing I know with this Houston program is, Kelvin Sampson won't care about any of that. He never cares about any of that. He's going to have his guys ready to play no matter what. So, yeah.
It's an issue. And Will, what do you think about it? Because when the net first came out, I think 3 seasons ago, there was talk of being a cap of 10 points for margin of victory. Well, I think that doesnn't exist.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on the net?
Yeah, it's consistency, because that's, as you said, we were told this would be the parameters of the net, and now clearly what we see does not coincide with that. So I don't know how else to explain it. You said a 67-point win, a 40-point win, and they're still 4. That's clearly not taking into account the 10-point cap that we were told was there. So, and it's early. I don't, we talk about preseason polls, we talk about non-conference schedules, things of that nature. So, with it being December 9th, maybe by March 9th, we'll see a little different formula. I don't know, but that is interesting to see fresh out of the box, though.
And I'm glad you brought up March 9th, because I'm going to try to pull it up here. The current net rankings of the AAC men's basketball teams. Look at that, guys. Houston is 4th.
Wow.
Cincinnati 39, Wichita State 62, Memphis 64, USF 65. That's it for not in the hundreds.
Good for the future Big 12.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of U of H and quality wins, conference play, where are they going to get them?
They don't have them.
So, yeah, they have potential for quad 2 wins, especially on the road, because I think road wins quad 2, and I should have pulled this up. And that's my fault for not doing it, because I have it on my website. Is a quad 2 road win is like, it's similar to home, because quad 1 is like 125 and then 26 to 50. And then quad 2 is like 51 to 75, something like that for road, something like that. But so Cincinnati road win, that will qualify. Wichita State could qualify, and Memphis could qualify. But the rest of the teams in the conference, if their nets don't get better, they're going to pull down Houston, Cincinnati, Wichita State, Memphis, and UCF, rather than lift up the conference. They're going to be a drag on the conference and anchor. So that's an issue which James and Will gets me into. It ties in nicely to, James said, the Big 12. Our last show was not quite 2 weeks ago, and we touched on, I brought it up about why doesn't U of H just go ahead and buy out, pay the exit fee for the American and join the Big 12. And we were questioned on it by a viewer who watched the podcast and commented on it and asked us on Twitter, the comments, basically, why did you not consider this, that, and the other, X, Y, Z? The reason I brought up the buyout was because it was suggested to me by someone at U of H. I just made it public. So I would not have made it public without someone at U of H, tied with U of H, had discussed it and said it was being discussed. Since then, I've learned, speaking with colleagues who cover BYU, because that was another reason why I thought it would happen for Houston, because initially, we all heard this in September, there was some thought that BYU would try to get out of their buyout from the West Coast Conference and join the Big 12 next summer. Well, the folks I spoke to at BYU said in September, October, they thought it was like a 50-50 chance that would happen. Now it's 80-20 that BYU is going to stay where they are and just wait to join like everybody else in 23. One reason, which I didn't think of at the time, and it makes sense, obviously, looking on it now, is because of all the football contracts that BYU has as an independent, and the buyouts to get out of those games would be a lot. So it's not just a buyout to get out of the West Coast Conference, it's buyouts to get out of those football opponents. So saying all that, James, Will, U of H is going to be in the American at least one more season for the 2022-23 season, and then 23, the plan, July 1st, 2023, should be in the Big 12, and hopefully, because it's still going to be a buyout, because, James, I think the contract in the American is 27 months. And then it's like, what, $10 million plus 27 months notification.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if they join the Big 12 in 2023, that's not 27 months. So it's still going to be a buyout of some sort. Some agreement's going to have to be made between Houston, Cincinnati, UCF to leave the American to go to the Big 12 at that point. But that's one reason why it was discussed. And I don't want to forget this. I'm dragging on here because Tamer hasn't joined just yet. Will, I forgot to do this earlier when I was on with you on KYLK, because I meant to do it last Thursday show on KYLK. I was very heated, James. If this is FTS, I can say it, pissed off at the lack of notification from the Harris County Houston Sports Authority regarding the logo launch that took place last Thursday. I named folks, called out names of people who did not contact me. I was hot. Why wasn't notified? Especially considering I've worked with these folks in previous years on bids, Final Four bids for Houston. Well, to her credit, since I blasted her name on the show last Tuesday, I'm going to praise her, giving her credit. Holly Kesterson, the president of the Houston Local Organizing Committee, she called me earlier this week. She apologized for the oversight. She did not make excuses for it. She said that they're going to work better and agreed to keep me in the loop going forward. And she's already done that today, matter of fact. So that's here. So I want to address that, acknowledge Holly Kesterson for calling me, reaching out to me, and apologizing for it. And I accepted her apology. So going forward, the Harris County Sports Authority and the Houston Roundball Review, no bridges burned there. 2023. James, where will you be in 2023? Will you be graduated from U of H by then?
That's the plan.
Okay, so is your plan to work here in town, like at the Chronicle?
I mean, I'll take whatever job I can get. I'd love to stay in Houston, but I'm willing to go wherever.
Okay, because the men's Final Four will be in Houston in 2023, hosted by U of H, Rice, HBU, and Texas Southern. It'll be the first time 4 schools will be partnering to host a Final Four bid and work on it. So, James, if you can, keep in touch and get a job here in town so you can cover the Final Four. Because, I mean, you know, were you in Indianapolis?
No, I was not, unfortunately.
So yeah, you got to experience Final Four. So stick around town in H-Town for a little while longer, James, and cover the 2023 men's Final Four when it comes to Houston. And wouldn't it be something, Will, James, if the University of Houston men's basketball team is one of the 4 teams participating in that Final Four?
That would be something.
Tamer is getting ready to join us. She's said to give her 5 minutes, so we'll give her about a few more minutes before we bring her into the show. James, are you keeping track of the U of H women's basketball game right now?
I've had it pulled up a little bit. I'm not watching it, but they are up 5 at halftime, 35 or 40-35.
Yep, 40-35 over Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State is 6-2. Houston is, to me, a disappointing 3-5 thus far this season. For a team, U of H, who had the slogan, Will, unfinished business coming into this season because they were so close at reaching the NCAA tournament last season. 3-5 ain't good enough, Will.
Oh,
James, it's not good enough. Jacksonville State, their wins have been over, I don't even know what AUM stands for. That's their first opponent. They beat by 50. They lost to Davidson. They beat Sanford by 3. Lost to Vanderbilt by 10. Beat, who is this? Institute. Basically, their schedule of opponents has not been great. So for Houston to only be up 5 over Indiana State. So Indiana State might be one of the best wins so far, honestly. But Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State, rather than South Carolina, is 6-2, trailing U of H women in town. Games at Fertitta Center, 40-35 at halftime. U of H 3-5. Well, I got to put it out there. James, I'm going to put it out there. It won't happen this year. Okay, let me say that right now. But Coach Huey's been on the job, James, 8 years.
I think that's correct.
No NCAA tournament trips, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't go again this year, and the non-conference losses this season thus far have not helped their at-large chances, so that means they got to win the conference tournament, which seems unlikely, not impossible, unlikely. So if they don't do it this year, James, you're Chris Pesman, you're in charge. At what point, you're going to the Big 12, Will? You're going to the Big 12 in 2 seasons? Will there come a point where you got to change direction? Because isn't the goal, one of the goals, obviously you want your players to graduate, but one of the goals is to get to the NCAA tournament, right?
Yep.
So James, what do you say? What do you think the thought process is or should be for U of H and Coach Huey?
Yeah, well, you hit on it with the Big 12. Obviously, since it looks like it will be 2023 when you're in, you'll have one more season in the American, and that season's pivotal before you go into the Big 12. You know, increased competition, all that. So you got to decide. You got to make that decision. If you stick with Coach Huey, then he's the guy that's going to run this program in the beginning stages of the Big 12, and that's going to shape a lot of the perception people have about the women's basketball program. And, you know, if they're just a bottom feeder in the Big 12, you know, not really doing much, or if they're able to compete. So if you think, you know, he's the guy, which there's certainly going to be questions if this season continues to trend how it has been trending, then they're going to stick with him. But if you think, you know, you need to shift direction, then I'd say this offseason would be the time to do it, just so that you give your new whoever takes over, you know, a year to get acclimated. And then once you get into the Big 12, you're ready, and you're ready to show, you know, we belong and we can compete.
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think, okay, all right, James, first let me ask you this. Is there a win-loss record in you have in mind that you think Coach Huey needs to reach this season, or is just simply another season of not going to the NCAA tournament justifies changing direction?
I mean, looking at it from just the perspective, especially last year, like you mentioned, how close the team was to getting into the tournament, and really feeling like they brought back a lot, most of the key pieces from last season's team, and added some. Last year they were 17-8, I believe. And so, I mean, when you think about that, I'm sure they were hoping for, a 20-win season. And I think that's a reasonable expectation. And that's going to be really hard to do now, especially with the non-conference games they've dropped. But, I mean, you got to get up into that. I'd say, yeah, I'd expect 20 wins, honestly, with but I don't think it's going to happen this year just with how they've started.
Okay, I'm going to pull up the last slide, me and my new toy. This is, I think, the net rankings for the women's basketball teams in the American. South Florida is 32. UCF is 41. Houston is 74, despite being 3-5. But 74 would not get you an at-large berth in the tournament. Trust me, not happening. So that means they need to win the conference championship. Will, I'm not sure they can beat South Florida or UCF in a conference championship game. I'm not sure they can beat Tulane or Tulsa or anybody else for that matter, the way they've been playing so far. But you look at those numbers, the American looks like at most a 2-bid league on the women's basketball side to get to the NCAA tournament. And those two teams, South Florida, UCF, that's not Houston. So at what point do you think, Will, outside looking in, do you think that 8 years would be enough to change leadership if they don't get to the tournament again this season?
Well, a couple of factors. That's what I was looking at, and you, I'm sure, would be able to, you would know this. What's his record at Houston?
Overall record, I don't think it's
overall record. Yeah.
I don't think it's great, James. If you want to look it up while we will not talk, but
yeah, because I was trying to look it up and not. So I was thinking,
yeah, because he's had a couple of 20-win seasons. The opponents weren't great those 20-win seasons, but
okay.
you beat who you on your schedule.
Right.
And then he's had a few seasons where not so good.
Okay.
So
9 seasons, no time. So no NCAA, any
correct.
WNIT?
Yes.
Yes.
I think at least twice. They made WNIT last year, this past season, I should say. They
Okay.
Because of COVID, it wasn't a typical
right
WNIT tournament, so they I think lost one and won one.
Okay.
So I think it was like a winner's bracket, loser bracket kind of thing.
Okay.
So
James, yeah. Did you see his record for James or?
I'm trying to find it. I'm still. Yeah. It doesn't.
That's one thing about women's basketball numbers. They're not as easy to find.
No, I was over there,
for
searching.
Yeah.
Because I could have find one spot for it, but it might take me longer than we have time for.
No, that's fine. So 9 years, no NCAA, a couple of NIT, WNIT. Kind of give him last year as a pass due to the COVID pandemic and things of that nature. So I won't necessarily count. And it's funny, I'm all kind of against him, but that was the closest he got to the tournament.
Yes.
Imagine that. Yeah, that might be it. Especially you come into this season as close as you came to getting to the tournament last year, and you don't make it, yeah, I think it'll change. And you tell me, I was thinking this Coach Mouton on staff. Is that someone that potentially could take the reins if U of H were to move on?
Now we're getting into the question of whether you want to clean house, whether you got the money to clean house. That's another factor,
right?
Or it's just Coach Huey is the needs to be changed, and the staff is good enough to get, move Coach Ty Dillard Mouton to the big chair. She's ready to lead the team. Who knows? I'm not sure. I have someone in mind as a potential replacement. I'm not going to say her name right now, but she's in the state of Texas. But Tamer, you're ready?
Just a quick interrupt, real quick.
Go ahead, James.
So he's 71 in 114, and 30 and 70 in conference play.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
And is that counting the 3-5 this season or not?
No, that's up to 2020. So he'd be 74 and 119 overall.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
So I'm putting you on the spot, Tamer Knight. We're talking about how you're doing. Unmute yourself, Minty.
I do that every time. Hello, everyone.
That's all right. We are discussing Coach Ronald Huey.
Someone said he needs to go. And I disagree. I mean, I don't know. They're not having a good season. But it's not like they haven't had better seasons the last couple of years.
True. And I'm being objective.
And it's still conference. I mean, come on.
No, very true. But what we're saying is if they do not, at the end of this season, get to the NCAA tournament, that'll be the 8th year in a row, I think.
No, I don't see the NCAA tournament happening.
Okay, so Tamer, that'd be 8 years in a row. So at what point, this is really the question. At what point should U of H consider changing head coaches in women's basketball?
But why is the NCAA tournament, why is that the end goal? I think
it needs to be the end goal.
Well, I agree, but you have to consider the factors prior to, Huey being in there. He's been there 3-4 years. So he's the first 2 years cut him
He's
some
been there
slack.
8, Tamer. This is 8.
He's been 8 years.
Right, James?
Yeah. He got there in 2014.
So since 2017?
2014.
Okay, but the first couple of years, you got to give him some slack. He has to recruit the way he wants to recruit. He had a bunch of new assistant coaches brought in with him. He had one that left last year, so he had to go and get a new one. And then it's all about rebuilding. I mean, I personally don't think the NCAA tournament should be the goal right away. I think first it should be trying to win the AAC, or if they're in the Big 12, then trying to obtain that, and then moving on to the NCAA tournament. Because baby steps, you can't make it to the NCAA tournament.
Go ahead, Will. Because I got a lot to say. But go ahead.
Yeah. You guys in Houston know way more than me. Granted, I give you that. But I hear an overall record of 74 and 119. There's no more discussion. You're 74 and 119. We have to move on. We have to move on.
I mean, well, when you think about it like that from an overall standpoint, then yeah, that's not even 50%. I mean, but that's more than like 50%. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Is it? But is he the problem? Is it the people he's recruiting that's the problem? Is it the
Well,
assistant coach?
that's him then.
That's him. He's the problem. If it's
Recruiting
recruits.
is him. The assistant coaches could be him.
But then maybe he has high expectations for the athletes that he's recruiting, and then they're not coming out there and performing the way they should be.
That he's recruiting the wrong athletes.
And then that's the
That's
coach's problem then.
But let's just look at some of the teams that they played. They beat Howard, Texas A&M Commerce. They should have won that. Stephen F. Austin.
They should have won. Stephen F. Austin is a good team. They were a tournament team last year, but the way they lost that game was awful. They just collapsed in the third and fourth quarter. It was awful. Awful.
Okay,
Go
they
ahead.
went overtime and UC Arlington 66-69. Not bad. Wasn't a blowout.
Still
But
lost.
it's still a loss. Okay, I agree. New Mexico, they've been dominating. I think they it's New Mexico. And then Arizona State, you couldn't possibly think they were going to win that one. But it was they did.
But they did beat Arizona State. They beat them this year in Cancun and beat them last year in the WNIT. Will, so they have wins over Power 5 programs. Arizona State kind of a down time for them because Arizona is not rolling through that state in the Pac-12. But Tamer,
Okay, we knew they weren't beating Baylor. That's given.
of course, no question.
Okay,
But Tamer, Baylor's in the Big 12.
right. So
UVA is going to the Big 12. UVA needs to compete on Baylor's level, right, James? Right,
Yeah.
Will? So we're saying, is Ronald Hughey the right person to lead UVA in the Big 12?
now, when you say it like that, he's gonna have. Okay, well, let's just rewind because I remember me, Andy, and Will. We were here prior to football season, and we were asking the same thing about Holgerson, and we were very iffy if this was the job for him. And I mean, they didn't win it all, but they did a whole heck of a lot better than what we expected. So let's just say, benefit of the doubt, we give Ronald Hughey the remainder of non-conference and then conference play to prove himself. Then will you guys still say he has to go?
Yes.
No. Well, yes, Will is saying that. But what we're saying is at the end of this season, if they do not make it to the NCAA tournament, which for them to do so now looks like they need to win the conference championship in March. So if they don't get hot for those 3-4 days, win 3-4 games in a row to get the automatic berth, that would be 8 straight seasons of no NCAA tournament. They're getting ready to go to the Big 12 in 2 years. Do you want to wait until you get into the Big 12 before you make a change?
Well, you have to remember they just renewed his contract, 2 years ago?
Which didn't make sense to me then.
Oh my God.
He's won 38% of his games. 38%. What are we talking about here? Why is that a discussion? 38% of your games?
Okay, so if they were to replace him, who would y'all like to see him?
My goodness. Trust me. Every year, like I said, I have someone in mind right now who I won't put on blast like that. But every year I get text messages, calls from prominent coaches. When are they going to let this man go?
But then
I could do better because what people see on the outside looking in, Chris, look at all the talent in the city of Houston and the surrounding area. Look at all the talent in Texas. I could do better. That's what I'm hearing. They'd have to prove it, but all the talent, Will, James, Tamer. Look at the teams in the Big 12. Almost all of them have a talented player. Hell, across the country, have a talented player from the city of Houston.
Yeah.
If not the state of Texas. So that's what I'm saying. The goal should be to get to the NCAA tournament because, as Will said, Tamer, this is the question for you. I'm going to ask phrase it like this. Will said Coach Hughey winning percentage is 38%. On the men's side, men's basketball, there's no way on this earth a head coach on men's basketball with a winning percentage of 38% would be around for 8 seasons. It shows to me, this is my point right here. It shows to me the administration does not care enough about women's basketball to be a big time program, to be nationally relevant. Because if they did, changes would happen at the end of this season if they don't get to the tournament. Tamer.
Well, first of all, if we get 2 things, if they got a new coach, it would still take another 1, 2, 3, 4 years to rebuild. So that's another 4 years.
Not
maybe.
necessarily, not to get the right coach. And not now at the transfer portal. Trust me, you get the right coach.
And then you made another comment. You said that shows, that he has been there for 8 years and no changes, and it signifies that no one cares, or administration don't care about women's basketball. That's across the board, whether it's college, WNBA, high school. That's a given. And
not necessarily. It depends on the program and who's in charge.
That is true, but what you have to remember is U of H is not known for women's basketball.
It was almost 20 years ago when they had one of the best players in the history of the program, Chandy Jones, and that team made it to 2 straight tournaments. Chandy Jones and Nicole Oliver and Santo Little, they had teams going to the pros. So
yeah, but 20 years.
Exactly. That's the goal. That's the golden era of U of H women's basketball. Since then, they have done nothing similar to that. They had one great year 10 years later. And since then, we are where we are about no trip to the NCAA tournament. James, you haven't seen it. You're at the Cougars. You haven't seen an NCAA tournament team on the women's side.
No.
Tamar, you were there at U of H. You didn't see it. So, as Will says, and Coach Huey is a great guy, great dude, great interviewer, great person, positive speaker, motivational, all these things. But James, Will, the slogan for this season is unfinished business. Because
last year was their redemption season. That's what they called last year.
Because they were so close to getting to the NCAA tournament last season. They were the first of the first 4 teams. Ironically, they were 65, team 65 last year. This year, 65 would make it because the NCAA has expanded to 68 on the women's side. But with that slogan, unfinished business, the team has said, James, you heard it. The players have said it. The goal is to get to the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Right, James?
Yeah, and like you're saying, they have most of the same guys returning. You can't take a step backwards when your slogan's unfinished business. You got to take that next step forward. But right now, they've taken a major step back with their play.
Yes, I think.
Why are you guys giving them such a hard time? It's only non-conference.
It's accountability, Tamer. I'll put it like this. James, Will, I think you've known me. You've learned this about me in the short time we've known each other. I hold everybody accountable. Men, women, my team, your team. Accountability is important to me. So if you're going to tell me your goal is to get to the NCAA tournament and you don't do it, that's on them. They started it with the slogan. They're the ones losing these non-conference games to, for the most part, teams they probably should not have lost to. At least we thought that on paper.
Yeah.
Will.
Speaking of women's basketball, number 3 UConn just lost to Georgia Tech. The first time they've lost to an unranked opponent since 2012.
I'm not surprised that they lost.
Yeah.
Because Paige is out.
Yeah.
AZ Flood is out. Another one of their guards is out. So their backcourt was, I think, down to maybe 3 people. Maybe.
I say that to say we're talking about keeping a man that's won 38% of his game. What are we talking about here?
Yes. What's the Will is asking it as a person from Ohio State. What are the expectations for U of H women's basketball? Because if they want to keep the status quo, then keep doing what they're doing. If the goal is to get to the NCAA tournament, and notice what I said, everybody, to get to the tournament.
Yeah,
I didn't even say get to the second round, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, win a championship. I said just to get to the tournament.
Right.
He has yet to do that. When he was hired, he said he believes this team, this program could be a Final Four team. They haven't even got to the tournament.
Okay, let's think about it like this. So prior to this last season for football, we were on the same exact conversation. Get him out of here. He redeemed himself in one season. So do you guys still think?
But Dana's been here
gets,
for two. Dana had 2 years of experience. This is
but
8.
but
Yeah,
do
that's
you
not
think?
8. That's not 8.
But do you think Holgerson needs to be gone too, or you guys are giving him another try because of what he did this season?
I'll say this. Again, I'm outside looking in. He's been here 8. This is year 9 for Coach Huey, right?
8 going on 9.
Okay, so year 8. That's 2 recruiting cycles. And in 2 recruiting cycles, you've had 2 sets of seniors. And you haven't made the tournament? You're winning 38% of your games? Where are the pictures? Who does he have pictures of? Seriously.
And
Ooh.
see, that's a whole nother. Will, when we're done with this, I'm gonna call you because I got some stuff to say off the record. Trust me on that one.
Absolutely.
But Tamer, Coach Holgerson, this is year 3, right? James, for Coach Holgerson.
Yeah.
They went 11-2. They won 11 in a row. Their overall schedule strength was not great. It was full of cream puffs, but they won. Okay, so that's first thing, they won. Coach Huey hasn't done that enough. Like Will said, 38% winning percentage. That's not even 50%. 38%. Okay. And I'm kind of curious as to what fans will say, supporters of Dana will say, if they lose the bowl game and end the season with a 2-game losing streak. Lose to Auburn. That's what they play, right, James?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious what they'll say if they lose to Auburn. Because U of H, Auburn ain't some of these teams that U of H played on the schedule so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
When are they playing Auburn? I don't see that on the schedule.
On the 28th, right?
28th.
28th?
Yeah, December 28th, Birmingham Bowl.
So,
Oh, it's not on the schedule. Okay.
so, and let me be clear. As a member of the media, I'm going to be objective. Always try to be objective for everything. But even as an alum, the expectation for U of H women's basketball, what is it? Because, as Will said it many times, 38% winning percentage. Is that the standard? Since Joe Curl, may he rest in peace, passed away, and that program won a lot, and toward the end, because of Coach Curl's health, he couldn't recruit and go out on trips and bring in the talent like he had there for a window. That team was 3 points away from facing UConn in the Sweet 16 when he lost to Santa Barbara in the second round by 2 points. If they would have faced UConn, probably would have lost, but that team was talented enough to compete with UConn. But to be on national TV, that game could have transformed the program for years, but it didn't happen. The program hasn't been the same since Courtney Taylor and Brittany Mason, those teams ran through the conference a few years ago. Tamer, the goal, what if the goal should be to get to the NCAA tournament and win? Right now, I'm just want them to get to the tournament.
I mean, that's the reality of things, but
because Tamer, let me flip it around like this. Rice has got to the NCAA tournament twice. Won the WNIT last year, won the WBI. All that's going on at the same time Coach Huey's been at U of H. I'm just saying.
Hey, I don't have a rebuttal for that one. You got a point there.
James, what's the score of the game right now? Are you keeping up with it? U of H,
Yeah, it's
Texas State?
53-40. The Houston's pulling away, but yeah.
Okay, so that's good. And also, I want to add this. Layla Blair for U of H is the best player on the team, best scorer on the team. One of the best players in the conference. She's from the Houston area. What if Layla says, because of the transfer portal, Will, James, Tamer, what if Layla Blair says, I'm tired of losing. I want to win. I want to get to the tournament. And decides, I'm out of here. I'm transferring to Baylor, to, whatever. What if that happens? Then what? Where does Coach Huey go? If your best player decides to leave the program. And I'm not saying, I don't know if she is. I haven't talked to her like that. I don't know. But that could happen because we've seen players transfer for less reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that happens, then what? Tamer?
It's chess, not checkers, So if U of H can't win, I don't see nothing wrong with her or any other player moving on and finding something that's best for them. I can't really rebuttal that. And while Huey could be there another 4 years, they only get X amount of time to prove themselves. And I totally understand if, they were to leave or if she was to leave to go and pursue something else. But women's basketball in the city of Houston is just not doing what it should be in general this season. We got TSU. I really had hope in the Huskies. At home, they can seem to get it done, but on the road, same for U of H. So Rice is all right, but Rice is off to a good start. But as a
with
whole,
with a new coach, by the way.
New coach, yeah.
Let me add some contrast to this. So I'll cover Ohio State. Kevin McGuff is the head women's basketball coach here. Been here 8 years. He's 171 and 85. Winning percentage of 67%. And in some circles, Kevin McGuff is on thin ice.
Expectations are different.
Yes.
They're vastly different. And that's an issue that I've had and dealt with covering women's basketball here in town for going on 25 years, 30 years. Tamer is correct. Women's basketball here in town, from administration's support, is a rumor. U of H side, whatever. TSU, HBU, Rice, they care about Rice. Rice has had success, but Rice has had success, and I'm not sure how much the administration cares about Rice women's basketball, except for the last 2-3 years. That's what we're dealing with.
And Rice, I don't know if this is biased to say, but I feel like they only just started to care about Rice after what Langley did for the program the last couple of years.
That's fair because, she got them to the NCAA tournament. But the lack of NCAA tournament appearances by the Houston area women's teams is one reason why I started covering Texas A&M women's basketball and Baylor and Texas, because I knew those teams going to the tournament and going to get things done. So it worked out for me because I made connections with those three programs, So, but from a Houston perspective, the expectations for women's basketball here in town in college are not great. They could be better. I think they should be better because of the talent in Houston, in the greater Houston area.
Can I just say this? I think, to your point about all the talent, that virtually none of that talent is staying in the city. That speaks everything you need to know.
Yes. and it's been that way for years. The young ladies see it. They see the lack of support from administrations for those programs. They see the lack of fans in the arenas, the gyms for those programs. So they're like, some of these girls play in front of larger crowds at the high school games than their college games at U of H, Rice, HBU. So they're like, why should I stay here? I don't blame them. Tamer, when's your next HBU game?
Saturday, Southwestern Assemblies of God.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be a win for HBU. So get your filler material ready for that one.
But the thing about HBU women's basketball is the last couple of games, they either have done two things. One, they get off to a slow start, so now they have to fight in the second half. Or two, they can't finish. And it's costing them horribly. Their record does not reflect the type of team they are this season. And I know for a fact Coach Donna Finney is not happy about it. And I mean, they had a good non-conference schedule, so let's not forget that. They played some really decent teams, and I guess it's good that they get to learn from their mistakes in the non-conference, but definitely not the start to non-conference play that I'm sure Coach Donna was expecting, nor I was expecting.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up on this edition of Folks Talking Sports. Tamer, how can folks find you on the internet?
You guys,
social media.
Hey, you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at T Knight Sports. I'm on YouTube at Tamer Knight. Also, AT&T Sports Southwest. I am the host of the TSU Sports Show. New episode came out today at 5. Rerun tomorrow at 4 p.m. So if you can, watch it, and I'll love to hear from you guys.
Will, how can folks find you on social media?
Appreciate it. You can find me on social media, Twitter, Will Gibson 7, as well as Will Knows Sports, all together. Facebook, Will Knows, the Will Knows Podcast, and WTGsports.com.
James, how can folks find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JDM2186, and all my work is at thedailycougar.com.
Thank each of you for joining us on another edition of the Houston Roundball Review presents Folks Talking Sports, sponsored by the Saxenian family. I'm Chris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram. Houston Roundball Review has been around since, I think, longer than James been alive for sure. I think longer than Tamer's been alive, since 1994. Local name, global perspective. Tamer, are you that old? Are you 28 yet?
Just turned 27. So 1994, I was born.
So there we go there. So see? But yes, as always, thank you very much for joining us. We'll give you insight, and just wanted to put a bow on this. Start of the show talking about the WNBA, end of the show talking about women's college basketball. We can do this. We can talk about football, basketball, men's, women's. We do that on this show. So if you want to become another sponsor of the show, hit us up. We can make it happen for you. Thank you very much, everybody. Will, sit by your phone. I'm about to call you.
Absolutely.
Everybody, take care.
Yes, sir.